In 1972, scientists discovered something that shouldn't exist. It's not a stone tool, not a fossil. Instead, it is the trace of a nuclear reaction system that was active nearly 2 billion years ago. Pause for a second and think about that number. 2 billion years. While the entire history of civilization as we know it occupies only a tiny fraction of Earth's timeline. The strangest thing wasn't the uranium. The strangest thing is how this system operates. It has fuel. There is a regulatory mechanism. It has a stable operating cycle. If that data appeared in a modern laboratory, many people would think they were looking at a design reactor. But when it's embedded in ancient rock, people are asked to consider it perfectly normal. And it is from here that an uncomfortable question begins to emerge. Is Oklo challenging physics? Or is it challenging the way we view history? If Oklo had truly been just an ordinary phenomenon, perhaps no one would have talked about it for over half a century. But the problem is that this story didn't begin with a planned discovery. It started with a misalignment, something that shouldn't be there. In 1972, at a nuclear processing facility in France, technicians were carrying out perfectly normal tasks. They were analyzing samples of uranium imported from various parts of the world, including uranium ore from Gabon. Everything went according to plan, until the measurements began to show abnormal results. The uranium-235 content was lower than expected. At first glance, it seems like a very small error, but in the nuclear industry, small errors are often indicators of larger problems. The scientists immediately re-examined the device. They re-examined the sample. They reviewed the entire process. But the result was still the same. Some of the uranium appears to have been consumed long before humans began mining this area, and that's when the real investigation began. It's noteworthy that nobody is looking for an ancient reactor. No research group has ever undertaken a project to hunt for traces of nuclear reactions from billions of years ago. No well-known geological model predicted its existence. No curriculum is designed to prepare students for this discovery. Oklo appeared as a troublemaker, something that corrupts the measurements. It's something that forces physicists to go back and re-examine things they thought they already understood. That's a very interesting point in the history of science. People often think that scientists go in search of answers and then find them. But in reality, many of the greatest discoveries have come about in the opposite direction. They appeared unexpectedly. They defied expectations. They refused to fit neatly into the boxes that had been prepared for them. Oklo is one such example. It wasn't found because humans knew what they were looking for. It was discovered because the data refused to cooperate. The data consistently points in the same direction. That large-scale nuclear fission reactions once occurred in this very place, in the distant past. And the deeper we delved into the story, the stranger it became. Because this is not the result of a reaction that occurred momentarily. Evidence suggests this system has been in operation for a long time. It has a cycle. There are periods of increase and decrease. There are signs of regulation. It's more like something that's in operation, rather than something that's simply happening. And that's when Oklo began to move beyond the scope of a typical geological discovery. Because the most shocking discovery wasn't its nearly 2 billion year age. The most shocking discovery was the feeling it created. It feels like we're looking at a system complex enough to make scientists stop and ask questions. And the most thought-provoking thing is this. Science did not actively seek out Oklo. It was Oklo who appeared and forced science to pay attention to it. It's as if, after billions of years of silence underground, it suddenly emerged to remind humanity that there are still chapters of history that we don't fully understand. And the scariest thing of all, this is just the beginning of the story. If the discovery of Oklo was strange enough, it's the way it operates that has fueled the debate for decades. Because the more one looks at its operating mechanism, the more one feels that they are observing a controlled system. It wasn't a random event. According to the widely accepted explanation today, about 2 billion years ago, the concentration of uranium-235 inches nature was higher than it is now. When groundwater seeped into the ore layers under suitable conditions, fission reactions began to occur. It sounds simple, But let's look more closely. Water enters the system. The reaction has begun. The temperature is rising. The water evaporates. The response is deteriorating. The system cooled down. The water returned. The reaction continues. That cycle repeats itself over a long period of time. If we disregard its origin and only look at its operating principle, this is what engineers call a feedback mechanism. A self-regulating system to prevent loss of control. And this is where the question arises. Humans have spent decades researching to understand how to control nuclear reactions. Thousands of engineers, tens of thousands of scientists, billions of dollars invested, countless experiments, countless failures. All of this is simply to create systems that can operate stably and safely. But at Oklo, we are asked to believe that the soil, groundwater, and a series of unique geological conditions have created a mechanism capable of maintaining equilibrium over very long periods. Is that possible? Maybe. That's the prevailing explanation today. But pay attention to one thing. An explanation doesn't mean all the questions have disappeared, because the deeper we go into the details, the more questions arise. Why did those right conditions appear in the right place at the right time? Why doesn't the system quickly become unstable? Why do operating cycles leave such clear traces? And more importantly, how precise does randomness have to be to create a structure that operates in a way that even the modern nuclear industry considers remarkable? Interestingly, each answer leads to a bigger question. It's like when we ask why a clock keeps accurate time and get the answer that the gears inside are working. Correct. But that answer opens up the next question. Who arranged the gears? At Oklo, the question wasn't whether or not fission would occur. That is almost beyond dispute. The question lies in the complexity of the system that created it. And this is what makes Oklo so appealing to this day. Because sometimes what is called an explanation is only the starting point of a new mystery. We give the phenomenon a name, describe the mechanism of the phenomenon, but that doesn't necessarily mean we understand the whole story. And perhaps, in Oklo's case, the most mysterious thing wasn't that a nuclear reaction had occurred. Rather, it happened in a way that resembled a system rather than an accident. If the debate surrounding Oklo had revolved solely around geology or physics, it probably wouldn't have attracted so much attention, because what many people find disturbing is not the nuclear reaction itself, but that's what could happen if the way we perceive this discovery changes. Try to imagine a moment. What would happen if clear evidence emerged someday suggesting that Oklo is not simply a natural phenomenon? The first thing to be affected will not be the field of physics, because a fission reaction is still a fission reaction. The laws of nature remain the laws of nature. What will be affected is the historical pattern that we have been familiar with for a very long time. A model that describes the development of civilization as a relatively simple, straight line from the beginning. Let's move on to agriculture. Arrive in the city, towards industry. Enter the world of modern technology. That's a story most of us learned from a young age. A story with order. It's in sequence. There is a clear beginning and an end point. But then, over the past several decades, different findings have continuously emerged. Göbekli Tepe appears to have a date that necessitates adjustments to many previous assumptions. The Antikythera mechanism demonstrates a level of engineering sophistication far greater than many had previously thought. The massive stone blocks at Baalbek continue to be a subject of debate. Sacsayhuaman, with its astonishingly precise rock formations, continues to raise questions for many. The Egyptian pyramids remain the subject of countless studies and debates. Interestingly, none of these locations are significant enough to rewrite history on their own, but they all create the same feeling. There's a feeling that the picture of the past may be far more complex than the simple model we're used to. And this is where the debate becomes sensitive. Because when a fact doesn't fit the model, theoretically, the model should be reconsidered. But in reality, people often tend to do the opposite. We are trying to bring the data back inside the model. It's not because someone is deliberately hiding the truth, because all systems of thought tend to protect themselves. When a model has existed long enough, been taught widely enough, and become the foundation for many other fields, it becomes much more difficult to question it. It's a very human phenomenon, and perhaps that's why Oklo reacted so strongly. It's like a small stone thrown into a seemingly calm lake. The stone itself isn't very big, but the ripples it creates spread very far. Because the question Oklo is asking isn't really about Gabon. It's not actually in uranium. It's not actually part of a nuclear reaction. The question lies in the completeness of the historical picture we are using to explain the world. Is that painting finished? Or are there still huge gaps that we haven't recognized yet? And that's probably why the debate surrounding Oklo never really ended. Because what is being protected is not just an interpretation of a place. What is being protected could be an entire perspective on the past that we have been familiar with for generations. If Oklo is putting pressure on the current historical model, then the next question is almost inevitable. What would happen if another civilization existed before us? Not aliens. These are not science fiction stories. It's simply a civilization that appeared a long time ago and then disappeared. At first glance, that idea seems extreme, but let's try to change our perspective. When we think of an ancient civilization, we often imagine cities, temples, roads, and stone structures. We are always searching for architecture, searching for the monument, look for any traces that are visible to the naked eye. But that might have been a flawed assumption from the start. Imagine our current civilization disappearing tomorrow. There are no more maintenance personnel. The power has gone out. The operating system is no longer in operation. 1,000 years from now, much of the city will begin to crumble. 10,000 years from now, many of these structures will be so distorted that they will be unrecognizable. 1,000,000 years from now, most of the traces will have been crushed by nature. 10 million years later, geological movements may have completely altered the landscape. What about 100 million years, 1 billion years, or 2 billion years? Is there anything left? Skyscrapers will disappear. The highway will disappear. The computer will disappear. The satellite will disappear. Even structures that we consider great today have little chance of remaining intact during that period. That's where the debate gets interesting. Because many people, when searching for traces of the past, unconsciously look for things that are familiar to the present. But time doesn't work that way. Time is the most efficient, destructive machine that has ever existed on Earth. It crushed the rocks. It erodes the mountains. It wiped out the coastline. It caused the entire continent to change shape. So, if a very ancient civilization truly existed, are we perhaps looking for the wrong thing? Perhaps we are looking for a house, while what remains is a trace of energy. Perhaps we are looking for a city, while the things that last the longest are changes in the material or in the nuclear structure. That's why Oklo is so captivating to many people. Not because it proves anything, because it forces us to confront an unpleasant possibility, that what remains after billions of years may be completely different from what we expect. And if that's true, then a lot of questions need to be asked all over again. Perhaps the problem isn't that the past leaves no trace. Perhaps the problem lies in the fact that we are still searching for traces that could not have survived for such a long period of time. And if Oklo is indeed a rare exception that still exists today, then the next question becomes even more intriguing. If this isn't central to the whole story, if this is just a very small fraction that remains, so what would the place it once belonged to look like? If the remains of a civilization can disappear almost entirely after billions of years, then perhaps we are asking the wrong question about Oklo. Most people, when looking at this place, unconsciously assume that if it's truly special, then it must be the most important thing, a wonder, a center of power, an iconic building. But let's try looking at the problem from the opposite perspective. What happens if Oklo isn't the center of attention? What if this is just a peripheral part of a much larger system? Imagine an archaeologist in the distant future discovering a modern power plant. There are no cities around. There are no roads left. No more data. There are no more people. Only a few technical traces remain. Could that archaeologist conclude that the power plant was the pinnacle of all civilization? Or will they understand that it's just a small part of a larger network? That's precisely why this hypothesis is so appealing. It forces us to change our perspective. We might be looking at something very small, but trying to make it the whole story. It is noteworthy that what remains at Oklo is not simply the trace of a fission reaction. What remains is a trace of stability, traces of operational capability, traces of a mechanism that maintains equilibrium over a long period of time. After nearly 2 billion years, many details have disappeared, but scientists can still identify the activity cycles. It is still possible to discern phases of the reaction that increase and then decrease. It is still possible to identify signs that the system is not operating in a chaotic manner. That's what makes many people curious. Because, generally speaking, time is the enemy of all structures. Time destroys order. Time for deleting information. But at Oklo, some core operational characteristics seem to have been preserved. And then another question arose. If this is indeed just a tiny remnant left over from what seems like an eternity, what does it represent? An energy facility? A mining area? A research site? Or was it just something so ordinary that nobody paid attention to it when it existed? In the modern world, ordinary things are often the first to be forgotten. No one writes a book about a substation. No one makes a film about a technical processing facility. No one considers an old factory a wonder of the world. But those ordinary things are the foundation that keeps the entire system running, and this is where the story gets interesting. Because if you look at it from that perspective, Oklo might not be the greatest achievement. It might just be the thing that's been around the longest. These two concepts are completely different. In many cases, what survives the longest is not the most important thing. It was just the luckiest thing. Or perhaps best suited to stand the test of time. That leads to a rather provocative assumption. What if one day we discover that Oklo isn't the only case? What if there are other traces of this somewhere on the planet that we haven't yet discovered? What if what we're seeing as a geological phenomenon is actually concealing more complex stories? Those questions don't prove anything, but they make one possibility hard to ignore. Perhaps Oklo's true value doesn't lie in itself. But the point is that it forces us to look at history from a completely different perspective. And as perspectives shift, questions that were once considered unnecessary suddenly become the most important questions. Perhaps the biggest question Oklo left behind wasn't about uranium. It is not related to nuclear reactions, and it doesn't matter who created it either. The biggest question lies within ourselves. Whether Oklo is a natural phenomenon or something else that humanity doesn't yet fully understand, it forces us to confront a truth, that what is considered the most certain is sometimes the thing that needs the most reconsideration. In life, it's very easy for people to fall into ingrained patterns of thinking. We are accustomed to one way of explaining it. Familiarize yourself with a belief system. Get used to things that are repeated long enough, and then, gradually, we stopped asking questions. But every real step forward for humanity begins with those who dare to question what seems impossible to doubt. This is not to deny everything, but to get closer to the truth. However, upon closer examination, Oklo also reveals an even more important lesson. Let's assume that other civilizations existed before us. Let's assume they once possessed knowledge, technology, or understanding far beyond what we can imagine. So, where are they? Why did they disappear? The history of every civilization we know reveals a thought-provoking pattern. Civilizations rarely collapse due to a lack of technology. They often collapse when morality begins to decline. When greed outweighs responsibility. When power outweighs conscience. When knowledge develops faster than virtue. Technology can make humans stronger, but technology cannot replace ethics. Knowledge can help people control energy, but knowledge cannot teach people how to use that energy properly. Perhaps that's why the biggest lesson from Oklo doesn't lie in the past. It lies in the future. Today, humanity possesses technologies that previous generations could never have imagined. But at the same time, we are also facing unprecedented ethical choices. And if there's one thing worth pondering after this story, it's this. A civilization is not measured by what it can build. A civilization is measured by whether its people maintain honesty, integrity, responsibility, and reverence for laws greater than themselves. Ultimately, What determines how long a civilization lasts may not be the power of its technology. Rather, it is the height of morality. If Oklo's story has made you think, please leave a comment sharing your perspective. In your opinion, what truly determines the long-term survival of a civilization, technology, or morality? And don't forget to subscribe to the channel to join us on our next exploration journeys.